NASCAR 25 releases this year. We're finally in a release year for a brand new NASCAR game. And we don't know much about the much anticipated NASCAR 25 title yet. Of course, what we do know is it's coming from iRacing as well as Monster Games, who is under iRacing's, of course, label, working alongside them. We've seen them release games already, specifically the World of Outlaws dirt racing games, which have had a very solid record so far. We saw iRacing release, what was it called, Exocross as well, recently, and I haven't seen much about that game, and I've seen a few review videos and whatnot, and it was kind of the same concept that I heard, was there was potential there, but it wasn't quite executed the way it should have been or could have been. But nonetheless, iRacing has had a very solid track record with their release games so far when it comes to maybe the true motorsports like the dirt racing, and as well as the SRX game that came out a few years ago. While iRacing continues to be very tight-lipped on this game and what to expect from features and anything in between, I've kind of been thinking on, well, what should we be expecting and what should we be hoping to see in NASCAR 25, and not only NASCAR 25, but beyond NASCAR 25. And that'll be a bit of a different segment a little bit later on to end the video, but specifically wanting to look at NASCAR 25, I have a really cool chemistry idea that I want to talk about, but we'll save that for a little bit later. But NASCAR 25, of course, the first iteration from iRacing, they need to be striking on some very simple things, and that is, of course, getting the handling model where it needs to be, making sure that we have a very proper driving experience. Of course, NASCAR Heat games always felt too arcadey. Honestly, the Utechniks games from NASCAR 2011 through NASCAR 15 were probably the best handling NASCAR games to date, and if we could just get a game from NASCAR 25, if we could get that game to kind of live up to that standard, we would be having a good time. It wasn't arcade, it wasn't sim. It was kind of a nice balance, kind of like what you have in current Formula 1 games as well. I think that's what iRacing needs to be aiming for. They've already talked about, of course, the NASCAR 25. It's not going to be a sim, but more of a simcade. So you don't want it to be too arcadey like maybe NASCAR Heat can be, but you don't want to be too much of a sim direction like actual iRacing service. So that is kind of the main thing, because, of course, what are we doing in the game? We're driving. Graphics, I mean, they're supposedly working on the Unreal Engine. That's not confirmed, but I would really not expect, blowing away graphics, but we do expect, up-to-date, on-par graphics with the 2024-2025 era that we find ourselves in currently, which, I mean, you look at the last NASCAR game, NASCAR 21, I think one of the big great things about that game was the graphics. That was maybe one of the few good things about that absolute train wreck of a game. So definitely, yeah, just put in a decent focus on graphics. It really shouldn't take too much to make, NASCAR 25 look absolutely flawless, but the gaming experience is really the main thing that we want to be, of course, focusing on as a consumer, I would personally think, and that's really where it comes down to the handling model as well. On top of that, AI. This is maybe the biggest thing, because the majority of players play, well, career mode, single player races, season mode, championship, whatever it might be. AI is the biggest factor in a NASCAR game for myself personally on if I'm going to have a good time or not. And I have confidence that we're going to hopefully get a good solid AI experience, because we have, again, Monster Games working with iRacing on this game, and I always enjoyed their AI that Monster Games developed in the NASCAR Heat series, so this gives me hope. However, iRacing AI from the actual iRacing game on ovals is probably second worst AI I've ever seen in a oval racing game, behind NASCAR 21 Ignition. So you put one of the worst with the best. It's going to be interesting to see how that comes out, because, yeah, no offense to iRacing, but your AI on ovals is genuinely horrific. Please fix it, but that's a total different discussion. But from the AI, we want to see multi-groove racing. We want to see more natural or more real to life kind of things happen with the AI. We want to see maybe some random engine failures. Rarely. We don't see a lot of engine issues in the current day NASCAR. We want to see random tire failures, but these are things we want as well to not only happen to AI, we want this to happen to the player as well. I want to be racing and have, you know, a very slim chance of a random engine failure, 1 or 2 a season, maybe 1 would be more realistic. You know, a random tire failure, it's a very real thing. I want that to be able to happen to myself sometimes. As well, one thing that's been very common since NASCAR went to the next gen car, loose wheels, of course, with 1 lug nut. I want that to be a possibility, where the pit crew makes a mistake, I get a loose wheel, and boom, that takes me out of the race, or we have time to come down and replace that wheel before we crash off into the wall in a burning flame of fire. That would be really, really cool to have, and it definitely needs to be something that's an option for on or off, not something that's forced, because I'm sure there will be some players that absolutely hate that, but there will be players like me that love the immersion of something like that. But back on the AI, just, you know, more real-life scenarios. I want to be racing at Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, and have the ability to have the AI ignite the big one. We don't get that in NASCAR games. That would be incredible. AI mistakes basically is what I'm asking for. I want to see the AI make a slip up, one AI racing for, you know, 3rd, 4th place, trying to get really aggressive late in the Daytona 500, make a bit of an aggressive move and take out someone and cause the big one. You know, Brad Keselowski is really good at making a really bad push lately in plate races. I want to see him just wipe out half the field and as well have that affect my race as well. I don't want to be, as a player, feeling like in a field of 40 cars that I am the one that controls what happens throughout the entire race. And when the AI aren't making mistakes and aren't kind of like what you're seeing in real life, that's what you feel like. You're the one that's controlling everybody else. That's just not really the most enjoyable experience. Another thing that I would love to see from AI is the aggression that we see in real life when it comes to, say, short track racing. We go to a Martinsville cutoff race in the playoffs, or in the round of 8, of course, and you're trying to make it into the final 4. And here I am as a player leading with a couple of laps to go, and I got a guy like Joey Logano in 2nd place behind me. Well, in every NASCAR game pretty well, outside of if you have a rival, that AI is just going to sit behind you and he's not going to do anything. If he gets a chance where you leave the inside line wide open, of course he's going to squeeze into it, he's going to try and go by you, but he's not going to do anything else. I want that AI to drive into that corner and try to move me out of the way. You're trying to win your way into the final 4. The AI should not just be riding behind me the entire time. Joey Logano is going to go in there. What's he going to do in real life? He's going to try the bump and run. He's going to knock you out of the way. I want the AI to do that, and you can't tell me that that's not possible to make happen when we've seen when we have in, say, the NASCAR Heat Series, the rival system. The rivals, if you have a rival, he's going to go down in the corner if he's close enough, and he's going to knock you out of the way. So you can't tell me that's not something that you can't put into your game. So long story short, really just asking for bringing the AI some actual life, which is something that we've always kind of lacked in NASCAR games. And of course, rivalry systems get talked about. Rivalries are a big part of NASCAR. In the NASCAR Heat Series, they were pretty bad. They're too hard to get rid of AI rivals, but there needs to be a rivalry system, but maybe even AI on AI rivals, especially if AI make mistakes or they will knock each other out of the way. I don't want to be, as a player, only myself getting knocked out of the way. I want the AI to as well try a bump and run on another AI and try to win a race at like a Martinsville or Richmond or something like that. I want rivalries between player and AI and AI and AI, and you just watch them race each other harder. I want to be able to make a rival with, say, I don't know, a Kyle Larson or something. Maybe that's not a good example. Kyle Larson, not a great rival. He always just does the talking on the track and dominates anyway. So maybe like a Denny Hamlin. So I make a rivalry with Denny Hamlin. I want his AI to not be like NASCAR Heat, where he's trying to shove me into the wall or shove me onto the apron or hit me out of the way every chance he gets, but just give me less room. They're programmed to just give you less room. They might move you out of the way. It's kind of like a 50-50 chance if there's an opportunity, but they're not just going to blatantly shove you off the racetrack on an oval or into the wall intentionally and move right on a straightaway, but they're just going to overall make it harder on you, give you less room in corners, and maybe occasionally knock you out of the way. And it's a short-lived rivalry unless you egg it on and continue maybe running into that guy as well yourself. Maybe like a cooldown after a select amount of races, like 4 or 5 races or something like that. This would really help build story for the player, and if we have AI on AI rivalries, it just allows more stories to develop throughout the season, keeping the player engaged, maybe viewers engaged of career mode playthroughs as well. That's a big thing for me. AI experience, it's absolutely crucial to get that right in NASCAR 25 and beyond. And as well, of course, the next big thing, I've kind of had 3 big points that NASCAR 25 needs to hit on, and that's the actual gameplay with the handling, the AI, that's 2 big things that make up the experience, and career mode. Almost everybody buys NASCAR games or any racing game, sport games for that matter, for career mode outside of league racing and whatnot. Career mode is so important to get right. It doesn't need to be insane in the first iteration of NASCAR 25, but it needs to still be done right. We have already got confirmation there's Xfinity in NASCAR 25. We don't know about trucks, but there needs to be the progression system where you're working your way up the ranks. Might that be from Xfinity to Cup, or maybe trucks to Xfinity to Cup as well? There just needs to be a proper system there. And NASCAR Heat 5 did a fairly decent job, or the NASCAR Heat Series did, from what, Heat 2 or 3 when the lower ranks came into the game. Yeah, it doesn't need to be insane, but it needs to be opportunities where you can come up through a pipeline team, like you're signed to a Hendrick playthrough, or Penske Racing, or Joe Gibbs Racing. You're signed to Toyota and you have more affiliation with a Joe Gibbs Racing, therefore increasing your chances of getting signed by that team by the time you reach a position to where you can come into the Cup Series. And basically, you can have relationship strengths with the team, and maybe as you climb the ranks and what you're doing on the racetrack in the lower ranks, trucks or Xfinity, is lowering your relationship with Joe Gibbs Racing. Your performance is not as great. You're running into too many things, crashing too much, while your chances of being retained by JGR into the Cup Series get lower, and you have to start looking elsewhere. So you're having a chance to strengthen your alliance or relationship with other teams along the way with how you race them on the racetrack as well. JRM, how you race their cars might affect how Hendrick Motorsports and the Cup Series views you as well. Things like that as a progression system to try and climb the ranks would be really cool, because for a lot of drivers getting into the Cup Series, it's not just smooth sailing and a very straightforward process. They kind of go from one team to another, switch manufacturers, and eventually find their way into a Cup ride. So something like that could be really cool as well. And when you get into the Cup Series, a just proper playthrough with, exhibition races. We don't have exhibition races in many years. The Heat Series never had them. I want the Clash. I want the duels at Daytona. I want the All-Star race as well. Those have to be in the game. First, NASCAR 25, it has to be there in my opinion. Such a small feature, but such a feature that I know everybody want to go to the Bowman Gray Clash and have just a nice fun exhibition race there to kick off the season. The duels at Daytona and the All-Star race, of course, at North Wilkesboro would be a really fun experience. But as well, in looking at career mode out as well, I want to see something that we actually saw in NASCAR 21 Ignition. Surprisingly, I want something from that game to carry over. The statistics. It's important to me, and I'm sure to many players, to have a fully fledged stats page for every driver in the career mode, including yourself, from starts, wins, top 5s, top 10s, DNFs, laps led, of course, stage wins now, of course, in this current era of NASCAR, and of course the points finishing position of every season, stuff like that. Want, of course, that kind of stats fully fledged out basically for every driver. It has to be there, in my opinion. It's crazy to think that you can have a career mode that doesn't have a fully fledged stats page for every single competitor within the career mode. Another thing as well, and this is something I've been thinking on and I kind of want to talk about it, and this could be a whole separate video, but I'll kind of keep it dumbed down. A chemistry system. with your team, with your crew chief, with your pit crew as well. And specifically touching on crew chief and pit crew. Your chemistry can change throughout the season based off of your results on the racetrack and whatnot. And if you're running better than your targets, your chemistry with your crew chief is building, and it's going to lead to some momentum and better potential runs in the future. If you're not quite hitting your target, you're making mistakes, well, your chemistry with your crew chief is decreasing, and the likelihood of your car being a little bit slower as time goes on until you kind of turn a corner is higher. So you might go through some moments where you struggle throughout the season. And chemistry with the pit crew. So there needs to be pit crew errors in NASCAR 25 and beyond, because the pit crew plays such a huge role in the real world NASCAR, and we don't get to really see it a lot in the games. They make mistakes, and if the pit crew makes a mistake in the game, okay, your chemistry gets lower with them, and if you maybe miss your target running position because of that mistake by the pit crew, your chemistry drops a little bit further, and the likelihood of them making a mistake in the future increases because of that. Now, if they make a mistake but you still reach your target, the chemistry remains unaltered, and as well, if you continue to have a race where the pit crew doesn't make a mistake, that chemistry between you and the crew increases, and the likelihood of them making a mistake in the next race or a few races to go in the future decreases. Very simple stuff that I think would add just a lot more immersion and a lot more storytelling and uncertainty to the game. NASCAR is all about unpredictability in this current era with playoffs and whatnot. That is something that should certainly be represented in the game. As well, R&D. I would like to see proper progression, of course, in the current era NASCAR. R&D, it's so close with pretty well almost running spec cars, but you still see the Hendricks dominate, the Joe Gibbs cars dominate, but it's, at the end of the day, a fictitious world in what will be a NASCAR game, and an R&D system where you can maybe race for Rick Ware Racing and bring that team to the front by making upgrades to that team from parts. And you look at the F1 games and the R&D tree there that we got, something similar to that. Maybe not as fully fledged out because you just simply can't do as much with a stock car in the current rules in NASCAR, but a tree, an R&D tree that allows you to upgrade your team and bring a midfield team, a lower field team to the top. But it can't be too quick either. If I want to take Rick Ware Racing to the top of the NASCAR Cup Series, I don't want to be able to do it within a season. I want, minimum 2 full seasons, 3 seasons to try and bring that team to the top. I know it's a lot, but you can certainly have some settings where you can adjust that, where the pace of the development and the upgrades can be changed. So maybe you can do it in a season if you want the game to be set up like that, or if you want it to be realistic, you can change the settings as well. That's kind of main things I want from the career mode and going forward in, not only NASCAR 25, but going forward beyond that as well. I mean, a few other things. I mean, specifically to touch on, I think weather plays a huge role in current world at NASCAR. We've seen rain races or wet races, damp races, whatever you want to call it. NASCAR seems to be really afraid to use the term wet race for whatever reason, but we saw the rain tires be used in Richmond. We saw them be used in New Hampshire. Put on a great show. We saw them used at North Wilkesboro. Of course, road courses, Watkins Glen, we've seen them at Coda. Weather has now played a big role in the NASCAR Cup Series, from road courses to flat short track ovals. So you get what I'm saying here. We're now at a point where in NASCAR 25, I don't expect weather to be a focus, and I don't expect rain in NASCAR 25, but NASCAR 26, NASCAR 27 for sure. I think it's unacceptable to not have, rain be a feature in, say, NASCAR 27 by the time that comes out, because it plays such a huge role, and we're allowed to now actually race on the road courses and the flat short track ovals in, damp conditions, which is something that can certainly be done in a game when we now know iRacing, of course, has rain themselves in that game. NASCAR is so cool, and iRacing, if they were to watch this video and take everything that I just said and put that in the game, it would be an unbelievably fun game. But there's so many more things that they can do with that. I know more people are going to talk about, more creators are going to talk about. I want you guys to comment down below what you would see or want to see in a NASCAR game as well. But I do have one more thing paint booth, of course, is crucial to be in NASCAR 25, and maybe if you're on PC as well. Before I even jump into that topic, if you're on console, there needs to be a sharing system of paint schemes, so I can download someone's paint scheme that they've shared to the base, the player base, and the database. And as well, on top of that, logos, icons, whatever, numbers, maybe custom numbers that people make, those need to be shareable and downloadable to be able to put on my custom car. Kind of like what you see in Forza Motorsport. And on top of that, if you're on PC, I would really love, I don't know if we'll see it, but it would be really cool if iRacing worked together with trading paints to implement maybe a system with the PC side of things to where you could kind of use trading paints to make paint schemes on there. That would be really, really, really cool in PC players specifically. It would suck for console players, but PC players could really, really create some cool stuff and utilize trading paints, which is already working right in line with iRacing itself, you know, to make really cool liveries that come together on iRacing. So that would be really cool. But that's kind of all I've got for now. There's some more ideas I've got that maybe I'll be bringing up in a future video. This is definitely far from the last NASCAR 25 video that we'll be making on the channel, but I apologize for the length, but there's just so much to talk about. But let me know down below your thoughts, and like I said, if you have any more ideas, be sure to comment that down below as well. I would love to read them and maybe expand upon your ideas in a future video as well. That does it for me. Thank you for watching, and have yourselves a great day.